20 years ago, I worked as a taxi driver to earn a living. One night, at 2:30 a.m., I received a call for a fare. When I arrived at the location, the building was dark, except for a single light shining from a ground floor window. Most drivers would have just honked once and left, but I had seen many people who relied on taxis as their only means of transportation, especially those who were struggling financially. So, I decided to approach the door instead. As I walked towards the entrance, I couldn't help but wonder if the person inside needed my assistance. I knocked on the door, and after a moment, a frail, elderly voice responded, asking me to wait. I could hear something being dragged across the floor. Eventually, the door opened, revealing a small woman in her 80s. She was dressed in a print dress and wore a pillbox hat with a veil, reminiscent of someone from a 1940s movie. By her side, she held a small nylon suitcase. Upon entering her apartment, I noticed that it appeared as though no one had lived there for years. The furniture was covered in sheets, and there were no clocks on the walls or any knickknacks or utensils on the counters. In one corner, there was a cardboard box filled with old photos and delicate glassware. The woman politely asked me to carry her suitcase to the cab, and I gladly obliged. Then, I returned to assist her. She took my arm, and together we walked slowly towards the curb. Throughout our short journey, she expressed her gratitude for my kindness, to which I humbly replied, "It's nothing. I simply try to treat my passengers the way I would want my mother to be treated." Moved by her appreciation, she called me a good man. As we settled into the cab, she provided me with an address and then asked if we could drive through downtown. I informed her that it wasn't the shortest route, but she insisted, saying she was in no hurry. She explained that she was on her way to a hospice, as she didn't have much time left. Glancing at her through the rear-view mirror, I noticed her eyes glistening with emotion. She shared that she had no family left, and the doctor had informed her that her time was limited. In that moment, I made a decision. I reached over and turned off the meter, assuring her that the fare was no longer a concern. I asked her which route she would like me to take. For the next 2 hours, we drove through the city. She pointed out buildings that held significance to her, such as the one where she had worked as an elevator operator and the neighborhood where she and her husband had lived as newlyweds. We even stopped in front of a furniture warehouse that had once been a ballroom where she enjoyed dancing as a young girl. Sometimes, she would ask me to slow down near a particular building or corner, and she would sit there, silently gazing into the darkness. As the first rays of sunlight began to illuminate the horizon, she suddenly expressed her weariness and suggested that we head to her destination. We drove in silence until we reached the address she had given me. It was a modest building, resembling a small convalescent home, with a driveway passing under a portico. As soon as we pulled up, 2 orderlies emerged, attentively observing her every move. It was evident that they had been expecting her arrival. I opened the trunk and carried her small suitcase to the entrance. The woman was already seated in a wheelchair, ready to be taken inside. Before bidding her farewell, she reached into her purse and asked me how much she owed. I replied, "Nothing. You don't owe me anything." She insisted that I needed to make a living, but I assured her that there were other passengers to attend to. Almost instinctively, I leaned in and embraced her, and she held on to me tightly. Our hug concluded with her remarking, "You gave an old woman a little moment of joy." After a brief pause, she added, "Thank you." I gently squeezed her hand, then stepped out of the cab and into the dim morning light. Behind me, I heard the sound of a door closing, a poignant reminder of the end of a life. For the remainder of my shift, I didn't pick up any more passengers. Lost in my thoughts, I aimlessly drove, finding it difficult to articulate my feelings. I couldn't help but wonder what might have happened if she had encountered an angry or impatient driver. What if I had refused to take the fare or simply honked once and driven away? Upon reflection, I realized that this encounter was one of the most significant moments in my life. We are often conditioned to believe that our lives revolve around grand events, but sometimes, the most profound moments catch us off guard, wrapped in what others may perceive as small gestures of kindness. I sincerely hope you enjoyed this story and found it as touching as I did. I would love to hear your thoughts and reflections on this narrative, so please don't hesitate to share your comments below. If the story resonated with you or touched your heart, I kindly ask that you show your support by liking and sharing this video with others. And if you're new to the channel, I invite you to subscribe and join our community, so you won't miss any future stories. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen and be a part of this journey.